What's happening, leprechauns? Layo the Leprechaun here. A question I get asked frequently is, Layo, do you take anti-psychotic medication? The short answer to that is no. I do not take anti-psychotic medication. Today, I am going to give you a list of why I decided not to take the anti-psychotic medication. Following that, I'm going to provide some evidence supporting my decision to not take anti-psychotic medication. And then I'm going to tell you a short story on what my experience was like taking antipsychotic medication, because I have actually tried the medication. Alright, so to start this off, I have to take you back to my first time meeting the mental health team in my area. After I went into A&E from what you describe as a mental breakdown or a psychotic breakdown. Basically, my voices became so much that I couldn't handle it anymore. I'd kept it a secret that I was hearing voices for over a month. Maybe up to 2 months, actually. I was seeing a mental health team daily, and I was on a waiting list to see a psychiatrist. While seeing the mental health team daily, I got passed around each day, seeing a new person each day. Repeatedly, I would have to tell my story. I then got my bloods taken, and in my blood they found THC and amphetamines. This is the first test. As far as I was aware, I had not taken any amphetamines. After a second blood test, the results showed up just THC. The mental health nurses then told me that I would have to wait 4 weeks, roughly around then, from whenever I smoked my last joint, in order to get all of the THC out of my system. Sounds pretty reasonable, right? They wanted me to be sober, completely sober, before being put on any antipsychotic medication. After 2 weeks then, I met my psychiatrist, and my psychiatrist told me to take the medication early. Of course, this contradicted the first bit of advice that I was given by my mental health team. So I questioned the doctor's theory here as to why should I take the antipsychotic medication early? Should I not follow the procedure and wait for the THC to get out of my system? He said, no, I'm a doctor. I know what's best. So of course I didn't listen to him, and I waited the 2 weeks. After the 4 weeks was up and finally the THC was out of my system, I had a couple of questions to ask my psychiatrist. The first question I asked my psychiatrist was, how long would I have to be on this medication for? He told me that I would have to be on the medication for 3 years. 3 years. This got me thinking, holy fuck. Can you think of what you can achieve in 3 years? 3 years is a very long time. That's about 4% of your lifetime on this antipsychotic medication. This I did not want to do. Second question I asked him was, what is the success rate of recovering with this medication? And you know what he said? The doctor said to me that, well, in an experiment, this many people took the medication and this many people took the placebo. This many people got better after taking the medicine. This is word for word. I said to the psychiatrist, look, I'm a mathematician, I'm going to need some figures here. And you know what he said? Well, roughly 50% of people get better. Roughly 50%? What a fucking load of shit. This psychiatrist had just lied to me. Now, if someone lies to you, are you going to trust them? Obviously not. So why the fuck would I trust the psychiatrist who's lying to me? The psychiatrist then gave me a card to look up the results of the medication, because I said this exact same thing to him, roughly thereabouts. That night, I then went on to Reddit, of all places, and I looked up the drug olanzapine, which is what I was being prescribed. Now, on Reddit, there was a thread of between 50 to 100 people of who had taken the medication and their reaction to it. Now, the responses here were very mixed. Some of them said about how they had originally been put on olanzapine, it didn't work, and they then got put onto another medication. Some of them had been put on one medication and then they got put onto olanzapine. They were taking both of these and their voices had got better, but they were 4 years in. Then there were other people who said they wished they had never taken the medication because now they become reliant on it. And finally, there was a group of people who had overdosed on the medication because their psychosis had become too much. And whenever they overdosed on the medication, they were hallucinating like fuck, seeing demons all around them, ripping out their soul. And I'm not going to go into any more detail because it was quite horrifying to read. There were no good recommendations for olanzapine. Now, to compare this to a book on Amazon, if a book has got a 1-star review and everyone's saying it's shite, are you going to buy that book? No, you're not. This got me thinking. This psychiatrist, who has not listened to any of my background story, to go through what he asked me in our 5 to 10 minute meeting, he asked me what drugs have I taken. Now it took me about 5 minutes to list all the drugs that I had taken. I have got an extensive list of drugs that I have taken in my life. Maybe I should add that onto my CV. So, 5 minutes out of that 10-minute conversation, I spoke about the drugs that I had taken. The other 5 minutes, he basically just told me that I had a drug-induced psychosis. He did not listen to the mental health problems that I had before I was taking the drugs. He didn't take into encounter the trauma that I had experienced or the head damages that I had experienced. So, in this doctor's mind, I had a psychosis caused by drugs. Drugs had caused the damage inside of my brain that was causing me to have these delusional thoughts and these hallucinations. This doctor thinks that his drug is going to cure all of this in 3 years' time. So, I came up with an analogy for this. Now, I want you to imagine your brain is a city, right? There's trouble in your city, you've got health problems, and you don't know how to address them. So you run away from your problems and you cause a civil war. In the civil war, bombs are going off. This bomb is a metaphor for a drug. You've gone to a drug to try and run away from your problems, to not address them, right? Then another country comes in to help you with your problems, but their response to it is they want to end the civil war. So what do? They bomb the country, killing citizens. This is America coming into Syria and bombing the place, right? This is a pharmaceutical company providing me their drug to cure my problems, right? So this other bomb, this other drug is coming into my brain, my city, and causing even more disruption. That is the way that I viewed the pharmaceutical drug that this psychiatrist was offering me. So I thought, hold on, wait a minute. Why would I want someone else to cause more damage to my brain? Already enough damage has been done. I gotta face my problems and see how to change inside. I have to go deep to the core. I have to find a solution to the civil war inside of my head. And I don't want other people interfering with that. Yes, I want support. But I don't want another bomb going off. I don't want another drug. I've taken enough drugs in my lifetime to see that they did not work. So I said this analogy to my psychiatrist. And you know what his response was? Layo, I really think you should take the medication. Fuck off! That's all you can say after that story? Even that story's a bit creative, like you could have applauded me for it. Fucking hell, where's my standing ovation, you cunt? Alright, I'm gonna get a bit fill my ego here. But that confirmed my decision that I could not trust a psychiatrist. And I decided that I was not going to take any more drugs. I decided to go completely sober. No alcohol, no weed, no any medication. And thankfully, through my own experimentation, I was able to find my way through recovery successfully. And honestly, I've lost like 95% of my symptoms of psychosis, if not more, a year since then. And I'm the best I've ever felt in my life. I'm the most productive I've ever been in my life. I'm the most myself I've ever been in my life. And it feels fucking great, man. I fucking love it. And that's why we are going to get through this together. Okay, so that is my story as to why I rejected the anti-psychotic medication. Now, some evidence to back up my decision making. I'm going to show you a clip here from a podcast. In this podcast, you're going to listen to a psychiatrist from London. This psychiatrist went through the normal route of psychiatry. He then thought, wow, this is quite narrow-minded thinking. We really do not know a lot about psychiatric disorders. And so he found out about this guy called Stan Grof. Stan Grof, who did a lot of work within psychedelics in the 60s and 70s, went to America, and then psychedelics got banned. And he actually created this breathwork technique, which can provide you the same feelings as a psychedelic does. This breathwork is called holotropic breathwork. And Stan Grof, by the way, also went through the route of psychiatry. So, here is a clip of what this psychiatrist has said.
A lot of some of the evidence-based model was wrong. So some of the things we were taught are wrong. So, for example, I was taught that if somebody's got psychotic symptoms, they need to take antipsychotics for 2 years, and hopefully they won't develop long-term schizophrenia. So we now know that long-term use of antipsychotics causes dopamine receptor supersensitivity, which causes additional problems. So in our attempts to help, we were actually making things worse.
As you can hear in this podcast, this psychiatrist has said that usually people are prescribed for 2 years, while my psychiatrist told me that I'd have to wait 3 years. A little bit I forgot to add as well. My psychiatrist told me if the olanzapine did not work, he was going to put me on another medication. So who knows how long I would have been passed about medications for. In the north of Ireland, because of the NHS, I am allowed to have free medication, even though I refuse it, which I'm very grateful for. I also got a free psychologist and a free mental health nurse to speak to on a weekly, then a fortnightly, then every 3-week basis, which was amazing. Honestly, I have to thank them so much for my recovery because they have really helped me and encouraged me along my way. In the United States of America, it is very different, however, because the pharmaceutical companies sell their drugs to the doctors. And so the doctors have got a quota of drugs that they get given either monthly or annually. Now, whenever that contract is up, these doctors are looking to get rid of their drugs. So doctors in America actually try and hand out more drugs than is needed for the consumer, because they want to get rid of that batch so they can buy another batch from the pharmaceutical companies, because they make more money that way. A lot of the psychiatrists also have shares in these pharmaceutical companies, so whenever the pharmaceutical companies sell more drugs, the psychiatrists make more monies. Monies. Here, I'm going to add in a clip from Blind Boy podcast where he speaks to an Irish psychiatrist about this.
And basically what Le Carre says in that, he says, lads, I've been looking at the KGB and the CIA and Israeli Mossad and all of these organizations and the Russian mafia and whatever. They have nothing on pharma for intrigue, for exploitation, for being willing to actually make calculations around numbers of people who will die You know, if they do one thing and how much money they can pay out to get over that. It's one of the most corrupt industries on planet Earth. I've seen it in medicine, how in the course of my career, they've shaped my territory of psychiatry and mental health to their needs.
So there is pretty overwhelming evidence that would not make you not want to take antipsychotic medication. Now, I'm going to share with you my experience taking antipsychotic medication. So one night, while I was almost falling asleep, right? I was lying there in bed and I was trying to sleep. I started dreaming without actually sleeping, so I was semi-conscious. The dream was disturbing, it was terrifying. I'm not going to repeat it to you today because it's fucking traumatic, honestly. But I woke up panicking and in a very uncomfortable state. I ran up to my mum and dad's room and I told them, "Give me the medication, I need it." And they were like, "Leo, why don't you meditate instead? You've came this far. It's clearly working for you." So I did meditate for like 20 minutes and I did feel better, but the dream was that traumatic. I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna take this medication anyway to see what it is like. The next morning, you could really notice the effects of the olanzapine. Fucking hell, I was so drowsy. It felt like I got hit by a bus. My brain was so slow. I had such cognitive impairment. I was not able to think properly. Even I couldn't really meditate the next morning. I tried to read and like I just got distracted on the first line and I just was not able to read. So I just stuck on the TV because that's the only thing I could fucking do, just lie there. It was awful. So that was another indicator of why I should not take the medication. Now, this is my own experience. If you are considering taking the medication, then I urge you to ask as many questions as possible to yourself and to your psychiatrist. Write them all down and try and find out the answers to yourself, because the psychiatrist is only human. He is going to make mistakes. The reason I'm creating this channel is to help you in your decision or whether or not to take the antipsychotic medication and to heal yourself holistically, because I've made some amazing improvements into my life and I believe you can too, and we can do this together. If you have any questions on what it was like to battle my psychosis holistically, then write them down below. Also, a question for all you guys who are taking antipsychotic medication. Have you tried to go off the medication? If you have, I would love to hear your response. Please write it down in the comments below, and I will be sure to get back to you. Thank you very much for listening, leprechauns. Make sure to tune in every Wednesday for a new vlog.
It's kinda crazy, the kinds of things life throws at you. I never knew I'd feel so safe in your eyes.